We're going to go into our second story here about BRICS. And we've been talking about it before on the show, but there's new news about this every week, it seems. Because now, believe it or not, there are other countries that want to join BRICS. 19 of them. We tried to warn you that this was going to spread. Here we go.
Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. These 5 countries are together called BRICS. It's a grouping, and this group may soon disrupt the global power structure.
I'm just going to pause here to explain to you who everybody represents. So over here on the left, this is the president of South Africa. There's Putin for Russia. Here's I forget his name. I know I suck. I forget his name. But anyway, this is the leader for representing India. And then this is Xi Jinping, who represents China. And then, of course, Lula, who represents Brazil. And they make up BRICS.
It's expanding. As many as 19 countries want to join the BRICS. And this is very significant. In a divided world, this group may emerge as a force to reckon with. You may think, how does yet another group help? And why should you care? Well, tonight we'll discuss why. In about 2 months from now, the BRICS summit will be held. South Africa is the host, and one of the agenda items is the expansion of BRICS. Like I said, 19 countries want to join. A South African diplomat has shared the details. Let me quote from what he said. What will be discussed is the expansion of BRICS and the modalities of how this will happen. 13 countries have formally asked to join, and another 6 have asked informally. We're getting applications to join every day. Which countries are these? We don't have the full list, but we do know of 2 countries that have formally asked to join. These are Saudi Arabia and Iran. And among those interested...
Woo! Let's go back. I have more countries on another list. I'll tell you in just a second.
Countries that have formally asked to join. These are Saudi Arabia and Iran.
Pause. Saudi Arabia. Now, Saudi Arabia, this is a country that does business dealings with the United States. Saudi Arabia and the United States have business dealings over oil, right? They're usually pretty tight. But Saudi Arabia, in my opinion, this is a way of letting America know, the US government know, yeah, we don't really belong to you like that. I know we had some business dealings in the past and everything, but we can move however we want to move. This is a slap in the face to the US government in the way to speak. Like, this is Saudi Arabia giving the US government the hand. Okay? Seriously. Joe Biden has yet to respond to this, by the way. They've already had meetings with Xi Jinping trying to bring about some type of peace between Russia and Ukraine. They've already had these meetings. And Joe Biden say nothing. Joe Biden, no, nothing at all. So Saudi Arabia, that is huge if they were to join BRICS. The other country here, Iran. So it's just, could you imagine how just think about this for a second. Imagine if those 2 also join BRICS. Can you imagine how powerful BRICS would be? The world is starting to change. Things are changing around us. The US government, remember the video we talked about a couple weeks ago with Richard Wolff, that the empire is starting to fall? This is another sign. The US government, there may come a time, maybe even in our lifetime, where the US government is not the head of the world, where the US government is not the police of the world, where the US government economically may not even be on top. This is a wake-up call. These countries are looking to create this type of multi-polar coalition. They're not looking for a head, someone to be on top and tell them what to do and to guide them. They're not looking for that. They're looking for a collaboration. They're forming a team. They're trying to become the Avengers. And I'm here to tell you right now, if Saudi Arabia and Iran joins BRICS, that is going to be something, okay? So let's look out for that.
And among those interested are Argentina, the UAE, Algeria, Egypt, Bahrain, and Indonesia. They all...
Pause here, and then I'll go back to let her speak. So Argentina, the UAE, Algeria, Egypt, Bahrain, and Indonesia. So that's 6 plus the other 2, that's 8. But remember, I told you there are 19 countries that want to join.
Want to join BRICS. The question is why. These countries already...
Go back a little bit because I cut her off.
And among those interested are Argentina, the UAE, Algeria, Egypt, Bahrain, and Indonesia. They all want to join BRICS. The question is why. These countries already have multiple platforms to engage. They have bilateral engagements where leaders have one-on-one meetings. They have multilateral engagements like the G20 or Group of 20 top economies, or the SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and of course the United Nations. So multiple avenues to engage. Then why bother with the BRICS? Because our world is changing. Globalization as we know it is ending. The pandemic disrupted it, and the Ukraine war accelerated its end. It has left our world divided into 2 blocks, one led by the US and its Western allies, and the other led by China and Russia.
Yep.
Where does it leave countries that don't want to join either camp? Countries that still want to enjoy the perks of globalization without picking sides. And there are more such countries than you would imagine. They don't want to pay the price for a great power game. Look at this map. How many countries are in the Western camp? 52. They criticize Russia. They have sanctioned Moscow for the war in Ukraine. What about the other side, the Russia-China-led camp? It has 12 members, just 12. What about the rest? There are some 127 states that fall in neither camp.
This point right here is so important. And I wish I could increase this and make this larger for you to see. What we're talking about here is power in the hands of few. When we talk about the West, let's pull this back up. You have the United States, you have Canada, you have parts of Europe as well. When we talk about the alliance here with Russia, you have Iran, right? But look at all of the countries that are gray. Where do those people go? This is very important. If you look at all the countries that are gray, there's actually more of them than there are a part of that pro-West or the pro-Russia side. So imagine if all those gray countries got together and formed their own coalition. I think this is something that people really need to see, right? Because sometimes, especially those of us that live on the West, we're like, yeah, rah, rah, USA, USA is the best, yada, 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 and all that kind of thing. And then it could be the same way on the other side, where maybe Russia and China may say, yeah, we're the best, yada, yada, and all that kind of stuff. And then you have this whole large gray area in between where those people just actually don't fit on either side. And then you start to realize that you're not as big as you thought that you were. So you take a look at this, and this should be eye-opening to people. These are all the people that are forgotten about in a sense. They are called non-aligned. Let's go back a little bit here because I cut her off.
It has 12 members, just 12. What about the rest? There are some 127 states that fall in neither camp, 127 countries who have neither supported Russia nor criticized the NATO. They did not join the sanctions against Russia. These non-aligned nations are the majority. And they have a clear agenda now. They're being both pragmatic and opportunistic, and they want a forum to present their case.
And let's remember Africa, they were really pushing Africa to take a side in reference to this conflict with Russia and Ukraine. And Africa said, yeah, we're staying out of this. This is all on you guys. We're not taking your side. We're not taking your side. We're just going to remain neutral. Think about all the countries in Africa. So the countries that were gray, those are actually the majority. We're not as big as we think that we are, at least those of us here in North America.
BRICS could be that forum, although it does have Russia and China as members, but they've so far not been allowed to hijack the agenda. This forum has advocated for globalization to be kept intact, and it has several compelling proposals in the pipeline. There is talk of a BRICS currency. It may not happen immediately, but it's an interesting proposal. It's a proposal to bypass the US dollar in international trade. BRICS members are also building new trade routes. One of them is the International North-South Transportation Corridor. It could speed up movement of cargo from Russia to countries like India.
New trade routes so that they don't have to deal with the United States trade route, any of that stuff. They can just bypass the US. We talked about the currency. We talked about yuan, how it has surpassed the US dollar on a global level. The world that we know is changing. And for some of us may sit back and say, oh, we kind of figured this would happen one day. But for some people, maybe more so like my parents, like generation, they're looking back and they're like, holy crap. The days of the US being the top empire, those days are changing.
And proposals like these are attracting the non-aligned states. They want mechanisms that are largely insulated from the great power rivalry. BRICS provides them an option. This may have given the group a new purpose, saving globalization.
People need a wake-up call. America needs a wake-up call. Now, that being said, there are a couple people that have talked about this before in reference to this multi-polar coalition here. Danny Haiphong talks about this. Ben Norton talks about this. Nick, my comrade from RBN, talks about this. If you're more curious about this whole idea of this multi-polar coalition, definitely check them out because they focus on this quite a bit. But I saw this clip here as well of Jeffrey Sachs on Democracy Now! And he's talking about this as well. And it's called Jeffrey Sachs on China's historic push for a multipolar world to end U.S. domination. It's getting real out there, you guys.
As China is making headlines across the globe, though maybe not so much in the United States for its diplomatic efforts. In late February, China released a 12-point peace plan to end the war in Ukraine. On March 10th, Iran and Saudi Arabia announced they would restore ties as part of an agreement brokered by China. Days later, in mid-March, Chinese President Xi Jinping hosted the Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva to talk about Ukraine, trade, and moving away from the U.S. dollar. Xi Jinping then met with French President Emmanuel Macron in Beijing. During Macron's visit, Xi spoke about the roles of China and France in world affairs.
The world today is undergoing profound historic changes. As permanent members of the UN Security Council and major countries with a tradition of independence, China and France, as promoters of the multipolarization of the world and the democratization of international relations, have the ability and responsibility to transcend difference and restraints. Adhere to the comprehensive strategic cooperative partnerships between China and France with stability, reciprocity, development, and progress. Practice true multilateralism and maintain world peace, stability, and prosperity.
While in Beijing, the French President Emmanuel Macron suggested France and European nations should not become a vassal of the United States when it comes to Taiwan.
France supports the single China policy and the search for a peaceful solution to the situation for that matter. It's Europe's position. It's a position that has always been compatible with the role of an ally. But it's precisely why I'm stressing the importance of strategic autonomy. Ally doesn't mean being a vassal. It's not because we do things together that we can't think alone, that we're going to follow the people that are the toughest in a country that's allied with us. When we look at the facts, France has lessons to be received from no one, be either in Ukraine, in Sahel, or in Taiwan.
China's continued its diplomatic outreach by offering last week to hold talks between Israel and Palestine.
Did you guys just hear that? China is even willing now to hold talks between Israel and Palestine. And where is the U.S. government in all of these conversations? Where was the U.S. government when China sat down with other countries to talk about a 12-point peace plan between Russia and Ukraine? We were nowhere to be found because we didn't really want a peace plan, right? Isn't that what was revealed, or one of the things that was revealed in those Pentagon documents that were leaked, is that there was no plan to try to end this war anytime soon? And that the goal of the war was actually to implement regime change in Russia? Isn't that one of the things that was revealed in those documents? So you have other leaders of other countries saying, forget the United States, let's all collaborate together and figure out what we can get done for us, and not let the United States government constantly remain the leader of the world. And that is what is happening. Now, Jeffrey Sachs comes in here. Let me bring him in because I want you to hear what he has to say.
Watershed that the world is living through right now. What China is after, if we view it from China's perspective, is what was also said, true multilateralism. And what that means, or true multi-polarity, another term that they use. And that means they don't want a US-led world. They want a multipolar world.
Ding, 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 ding. That part right there. They don't want a US-led world. They want a multipolar world. Kind of sounds like a co-op, right? That kind of sounds like a worker co-op. Nobody's in charge over here. We're all working together to get things done. They don't want a boss.
And the basis of that is that the United States is 4.1% of the world population. China is 17.5% of the world population. China's economy is comparable to the US economy, and indeed China is the lead trade partner for much of the world. So China is saying, we're there too, alongside you. We want a multipolar world. We don't want a US-led world. And while the United States sometimes talks about a rule-based order, the fact of the matter is that the U.S. grand strategy, if we can use that term of the grand strategists of the U.S. State, see our grand strategy in the United States as being dominance. And I often refer to an article that I think is very clear, succinct, and revealing by a former colleague of mine at Harvard University, Robert Blackwell, an esteemed ambassador of the United States, who wrote in 2015, and I'll quote from the article, "Since its founding, the United States has consistently pursued a grand strategy focused on acquiring and maintaining preeminent power over various rivals, first on the North American continent, then in the Western Hemisphere, and finally globally."
And eventually to the point where the United States government became the world's police. That's why there's 800 military bases, US military bases across the world. That's why. And it doesn't even really necessarily have to be a rival. He mentioned rival, but it doesn't really necessarily have to be that either. It is just the fact of world dominance. It's just the fact of the US government wanting to extract resources from other countries. Doesn't mean that country actually did something to the United States. They just want the resources, right? We were in Afghanistan, what? Partly because they had a resource that we wanted. That was opium. The 1/3 part that the US government occupies of Syria, that just happens to be where the oil is located. It's things like that, you know? It's just things like that. So these countries, and I'll be interested to see where countries like Haiti would fit in all of this. There were talks of Mexico possibly joining BRICS at one point. I don't know if that's still, a plan, but it will be interesting to see some of these other countries that have been devastated by the US government, if they would be a part of this as well. You can't really be upset. I will say this. You can't really be upset because it's like, we've taken so much. We've taken so much from these people. And I don't mean like you and me personally, but our government has. They've destroyed countries. They've removed leaders of other countries. Imagine if someone came to the US and just removed our leader and said, okay, you're not going to be president. Actually, you guys probably be happy about that right now. But you guys are not going to be president anymore. We're going to put somebody else in. Imagine if that happened here. If someone else just came in and said that. So, I mean, you really can't be mad at them. I see people like, how dare China and them do this? How dare they? Would you trust the US government? Would you, if you lived abroad in one of those other countries, would you trust the US government right now? Would you trust that they wouldn't intervene in your country? Would you trust that they wouldn't try to steal your resources? Would you trust that they wouldn't try to overtake your leaders and knock your leaders out and put someone else on a pedestal? Would you trust the US government at this point in time, knowing everything that's happened historically? Because I would not.
Well, China doesn't want the United States to be the preeminent power. It wants to live alongside the United States. Blackwell, writing in 2015, said China's rise is a threat to U.S. preeminence. And he laid out a series of steps that the Biden administration actually is following almost step by step. What Blackwell laid out already back in 2015 is that the United States should create, quote, new preferential trading arrangements among U.S. friends and allies to increase their mutual gains through instruments that consciously exclude China. There should be a technology control regime to block China's strategic capabilities, a buildup of, quote, power political capacities of U.S. friends and allies on China's periphery, and strengthen U.S. military forces along the Asian rimland despite any Chinese opposition. This has become the Biden foreign policy. China knows it. China really is pushing back. But what's very important and interesting to understand, and we've seen it clearly in the dynamics involving the Ukraine war, most of the world also does not want the U.S. as the global preeminent power. Most of the world wants a multipolar world.
Most of the world wants a multipolar world. Our government, however, wants to be the head. It's like Voltron. There's a cartoon I used to watch when I was a kid. There's this cartoon called Voltron. And like, there's these little men, and they like come together and they form this giant transformer called Voltron, right? Don't call them Transformers though, because Voltron fans get mad. But anyway, there was like a head, and someone formed. He's like, I'll form the arm, I'll form the leg, and I'll form the head. Voltron. So the US government just wants to be the head. That's it. The US government just wants to be on top and wants to be in control and wants to be in charge. They don't really want to work with other people. And this is also why, like, even some of our allies are starting to have criticism. This is why even President Macron, who can't control his own country right now, there's crazy shit going on in France right now. But honestly, like President Macron, he took, this pension reform from people. We've talked about this multiple times on the show. I don't want to get too in the weeds with it. But even he made the statement that I do not want to go along with the US lead and be opposed to China. I still want to have the relationship that I have with China. And actually, guys, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe us European countries, maybe we should try to be a third world power and not really just rely on the lead from the United States. It's the US. It's the US that wants to be the head. And they'll always make it seem like it's always the other country that is the enemy. And we never do anything wrong. We're the ones in the right. We're just trying to save everybody. We're trying to save all the women and the children that we've killed, that we've starved to death because of sanctions. You have to start asking yourself these questions. That's right. JB says Voltron is a worker co-op. Hell yeah. Voltron. I love it. I love that show.
And is therefore not lined up behind the United States sanctions on Russia and so forth. And this was also the message of President Lula visiting China, saying to President Xi Jinping, we as Brazil also want multi-polarity, true multi-polarity, and we want peace, for example, in the Russian-Ukraine war that is based on not a U.S. perception of dominance, say NATO enlargement, but rather a peace that reflects a multipolar world. This is real. It's happening all over the world. And the fact of the matter is, the reason why this is a historic watershed is that the underlying economics and technological change have made it so the U.S. is no longer the dominant world economy, and the G7, which is the U.S., Canada, Britain, France, Italy, Germany, and Japan, is actually smaller than the BRICS countries in economic size, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. So we really are, in fact, in a multipolar world, but in ideology, we're in a conflict.
Boom. There you go. This is what I was saying. Like, things are starting to change. If you haven't had a chance to do so, I have a video where Richard Wolff is on the thumbnail, and it's called The U.S. Empire is Falling or something like that, right? It should be on my homepage. That video has over 60,000 views now, which is crazy. That happened recently. So apparently a lot of people want to hear about why the U.S. is struggling, because that video really took off. If you haven't had a chance to see that, you'll definitely want to check that out. Now, that being said, I do want to offer a little bit of humor here, because I told you I was going to bring this back up again, but this is a different one, because I want you to look at it from a different perspective as well when we talk about like BRICS. And this account, again, on TikTok, I told you, like, she's really great. It's called, let me just pause this here. It's called 50 Shades of K. So she did another one. We got to add some humor to this because this is funny. It says, point of view, if the countries had a meeting, part 2. So this involves BRICS as well. Check this out.
Gee, this motherfucker hip. Boy, I tell you, I'm finna spaz. On Jackie Chan, I'm finna spaz. China, what's wrong? He mad because America just went on vacation and he still ain't paid him his money back? Yeah, I just had a meeting about that on Wednesday. I told them I'm not giving them no more goddamn stimulus checks. Yeah, I'm gonna call you back though. What up, y'all? What we talking about today? What up, Russia? America, is you out here blowing money you still ain't paid China back? Oh my God. Every time I turn around, y'all all down my back about some goddamn money. Ain't ask me how I'm doing or nothing. How that yen doing? Yuan. Yuan is y'all currency. Not yen, that's Japan them. Man, who keep inviting the continent hoe? I thought we already established her big ass ain't fit to be here. America, shut the fuck up. All you hoes is my sons, honestly. But for your information, Nigeria is sick, so I'm covering for her today, okay? And I'm a continent. I don't need your permission to be here. Ain't you a continent too? Oh no, see, there's North America, and then there's South America. Y'all know South America. Me and her used to kick back in the day. But which one is you? United States, bitch. And for your info, I could have been a continent, but I turned it down because I didn't want to. It's too much work. I'd rather be a country. Either way, I'ma conquer some shit. As if this shit couldn't get any goddamn worse. Mexico, what are you doing here? He a country, ain't he? He can be here. He a little late, but he could be here. I'm late because I've been working all day. Y'all don't know nothing about that. Y'all don't work. None of y'all know what hard work is. Me and my people, we work for what we want. If we don't got it, we gonna build it. Yeah, y'all work y'all ass over here and take all the construction worker jobs is what you do. And poop that we deserve them. Your country wouldn't be shit without my people. He ain't lying. You wouldn't be shit without my people either. You would be fucked. Look, I understand y'all want to get off on a rant about racism, but we need to focus on the issue at hand. The motherfucking money. All right, China act like a goddamn Capricorn. What's up with the money? I'm gonna pay him back. I had gave some of it to Ukraine though, so I'm just really waiting on them. They said they're gonna pay me back though, so I'm just waiting on them to pay me back, and then I'm paying
Oh, that is the golden moment. That's the golden part.
you back. You gave Ukraine my motherfucking money, and I don't know what for. The fuck is you jumping in my beef for? I'm beefing with Ukraine like I always do, and then here come America want to play Captain Save-A-Hole and go get him some money. Ain't even got no money to give. You wrong as fuck for that, G. I would have never did no shit like that. You wrong. I don't even know how you sleep at night. Russia, is you trying to gaslight him for trying to help them? Gaslight. Of course I'm a gaslighter. I'm 1/4 European. It run in my blood. Hey, y'all. China ain't that? Taiwan. God damn it, baby, what is you doing here? I done already told you ain't no goddamn country. Yes, I am. They said it.
Who said it?
I did. I got my own military. It don't work like that, Taiwan. Your ass is the Republic of China. China, that's me. The Republic of me. So no matter how independent you think you want to be, your ass still belongs to me. And bitch, we can fight about that. We can get it cracking. I'll put your ass in the head like real quick, slap your ass. No, I'm not no damn Republic of shit no more. I'm my own country. I'm my own woman, China. I don't want to be with you no more. You don't treat me right. Like, I need to be on my own. I need to be my own. I need to be on my own for a little while. Look, Taiwan, I know this is a difficult time for you, you know, going through all your trials and tribulations that you going through, you know, with the separation and all that. So I just wanted to let you know that if it's anything you need, I'm here for you if you want to talk or something like that. You need somebody. Thank you.
A little bit of humor for you there. Again, that channel on TikTok is called 50 Shades of K1. There's a 1 at the end. Definitely check that out. I had to end with a little bit of humor there for you. I'm sorry. It's funny. She's cracking me up. Okie doke. We're going to go ahead to our next story here. Let me shout out some comments first, and then we'll get into the Bernie story. Oh boy, she's a trip. Thank you for the super chat, Beth. Saudi Arabia isn't giving the U.S. the hand, just one finger. There you go. Thank you for the super chat, Roger. BRICS is forming a co-op Sabby with no head at the top. Exactly. That's what it is. Thank you for the super chat, Mary. Remember, those countries are third world nations, and they finally seek to grow out of the pit the U.S. left them in. They're tired of the U.S. sanctions. There you go. Brian said the Durand breaks it down. Cyrus Jansen. That's right. That's another one I forgot. The Durand talks about the multipolar world. Mastermind, the BRICS Globetrotters are coming to play the Wall Street Generals. That's a cute name. You guys got jokes. JB, I talked about this with Carl Za. I released the clip about a multipolar world this morning. Yes, check that out, you guys, on JB's channel, because he interviewed Carl Za. I hope I'm saying his last name correctly. Really good interview. And it seems like JB has the clips now, so you can see some of the clips too. Thank you for the super chat, Meteor Dreams. Imagine if all marginalized communities within the U.S. got together and did what BRICS is doing. We would all be a better country. But we can't because greed. And thank you for the super sticker, Justin. Thank you, Justin.